Hey, what's up guys, it's Darius, and I recently had the chance to test the Canon EOS R. So in this video I'll try to answer, should you still buy it almost a year after its release? If I were in the market for a new camera, which in fact I was until recently, that camera would need to check a couple of boxes. It would need to shoot 4K video, have good video autofocus, and be fairly easy to use. The Canon EOS R checks all those boxes, so I decided to give it a shot. Before we start, a quick disclaimer, I'm not a professional, I mainly film videos like this one. I'm not a photographer either. I do enjoy taking pictures from time to time. In fact, I did take it out on a couple of casual shoots, but more on that later. I'm not a Canon user. I have used the Canon 80D for a couple of months and I did enjoy it, but I've been mainly shooting on Panasonic and now Sony. Now, why does the Canon EOS R even exist? Well, Canon is under a lot of pressure. They're losing a bunch of customers to Sony because they don't really have a good mirrorless camera, and the EOS R is supposed to, well, fix that. It is a way for Canon to move into the mirrorless market. When I first got this camera, I had pretty low expectations for it, to be honest. It doesn't impress on paper in terms of specs or features, and when it came out, it got bashed for it. But after having used it for a while now, I can tell you the Canon EOS R is a good camera. And before you flip out, let me explain. First, the body. This is the most comfortable mirrorless camera body I've ever held. The grip is nice and deep, it has some heft to it, and it just feels right. It's built like a tank and seems like it won't break if you drop it. Of course, it's also weather sealed, and it has this nice feature where when you take the lens off, it covers the sensor to protect it. Brilliant. To be fair, it is a little big and bulky for a mirrorless camera, especially combined with the new lenses like this 24-105, but I don't really mind that. I love the flip out touchscreen. Seriously, how is Canon the only manufacturer to implement this successfully in their pro cameras? It cannot be that difficult. Touch control is very good, although it sometimes has trouble keeping up when tracking a subject. The EVF is pretty good as well, not class leading, but decent. The menu system is great and very intuitive. I can find everything I need without too much hassle, and the Q menu in particular is very convenient. Thumb placement is great, and for the most part, everything is accessible with one hand. I really can't stress enough how good the ergonomics on this body are. Although the AF on button is in a weird spot. You have a top LCD panel, which is nice, and weirdly enough, there's no mode dial. In terms of ports, it has pretty much everything you'd expect, with the exception of a second SD card slot. I personally don't mind that, but you might. The camera itself is very customizable, menus as well as buttons, which I quite like. The main new addition on this camera body is the multi-function bar. It's basically a little touch strip for quickly adjusting your settings like your ISO. In theory, great. In practice, however, it was more annoying than useful. I'd often tap it on accident and then mess up some setting. To prevent that, you can lock it in the settings, so you have to activate it first, but then it's not really faster than just adjusting the settings like that. Canon really has to figure this one out, but it would be great if they improved upon it on the new version, because I really like the concept. The other addition is the control ring on the new lenses, and it is great. You can set it to adjust things like your aperture, your ISO, whatever. It is very convenient. They even have it on one of the new adapters, which is awesome. In fact, let's talk about lenses and adapters. Currently, there are only 5 lenses available for this new mount, which is, well, kind of a problem. Don't get me wrong, the new lenses are incredible. Seriously, there's a 24-70 f2, a 50 and an 85 f1.2, and this kit lens, the 24-105 f4, is amazing as well. They are pretty bulky and heavy, which is fine, I guess, but this whole setup really doesn't look like a mirrorless one, more like a traditional SLR. Just a quick interruption. While I was editing this video, Canon actually announced a few new lenses, including a 15-35 f2.8 and a 24-70 also f2.8. Both are available today, and they also announced a 70-200 f2.8 coming soon. That is definitely good news, but doesn't change the fact that there's still too few native RF lenses. You can adapt Canon EF lenses, which is great. They apparently work really well, like native lenses. I couldn't test that, however, because I don't own any Canon glass. There are 4 adapters available, a standard one, which is the one I have, the one with the control ring, and 2 with drop-in filters, which is genius. You can pop in an ND filter behind the lens and even adjust it without having anything in front of the lens. Now there is a small issue with the new lenses that only 2 of them have IS. Usually not an issue with the new stabilized mirrorless camera bodies, however the Canon EOS R lacks in-body image stabilization. It does come with digital stabilization, but it's not that great and it crops in. Speaking of crop, let's move on to video. And this is the massive issue with the EOS R. Namely, it shoots 4K video, but with a 1.7 times crop. That is more than APS-C. What the hell, Canon? Using it, it was very frustrating. You'd have to get insanely wide glass to get some nice wide shots. And it's really frustrating considering the competition can utilize the full sensor when shooting 4K. If it were a 1.2 times or 1.3 times crop, like the 1DX Mark II, I'd be okay with that, but a 1.7 times is just insane. To make matters worse, it doesn't have a usable 120 mode either. It does do it in 720p, but it doesn't have autofocus nor audio in that mode, which makes it pretty much unusable. You can shoot in 1080 utilizing the full width of the sensor, but that only goes up to 60p. It seems like Canon intentionally crippled the EOS R's video capabilities in order to protect their more high-end cameras. Admittedly, the video quality is very good. I really like the Canon look. The colors are just right, and especially the skin tones come out very natural, and I don't have to do much color correcting. It also comes with C-Log, and it can record 10-bit 422 externally, which is great. The dual pixel autofocus is still class leading, but other manufacturers are catching up. In my testing, it worked very well. It was quick, smooth, and reliable. Although when tracking in subject, it would sometimes lose it and then focus on something else. I still love tap to focus, and Canon even added eye autofocus in video now, which works quite well. Now let's move on to photos. Like I said, I'm not much of a photographer, but I did take it out on a couple of casual photo shoots and it performed very well. Image quality is excellent as to be expected. It uses the same sensor as the 5D Mark IV, which is very capable and produces a gorgeous image. And again, I'm a big fan of the look and the very accurate colors. Autofocus was good, but not comparable to the new Sony's. For the most part, it did the job quite well, but it wasn't 100% accurate. Eye autofocus was added with an update, and like in video, it works quite well, but you have to be quite close to the subject for it to work. Otherwise, it just uses face detect. Sadly, there is no AF joystick, but it has this touch to drag capability, which works fine, but it's not really the same. This is a terrible camera for wildlife or sports because burst performance is poor. It does 8 FPS without autofocus or exposure, 5 with AF and exposure, but effectively it's only 2 FPS because the continuous autofocus is so slow. Recently, Canon added the ability to shoot silently with an update, which is great for events. In low light, it did perform quite well. Again, no comparison with the Sony's, but still very capable. ISO performance is quite respectable. I'd say usable up to 10,000 with some noise reduction. Lastly, let's address battery life. It is only rated for 350 to 370 shots, which isn't that much. In real life, it was actually quite a bit more. I can't really give you an exact number of shots, but as a casual shooter, it lasts you well over a day. In terms of video, you can record about 2 hours of 4K video on a single charge, which is a lot. I really like that it uses the standard Canon batteries because pretty much everyone has one of these lying around. I even have a spare one and I don't even shoot Canon. It also charges via USB-C, which is great, but sadly you cannot charge and use the camera at the same time. To conclude, the Canon EOS R is still a good camera. It sports impressive image quality with respectable ISO performance. Battery life is quite good. I love the super ergonomic body, the intuitive menu system, and generally the simple usability. Small things like the flip-out touchscreen go such a long way in making my life easier. On the other hand, there are barely native lenses for it, it has crippled video capabilities, and an older, non-stabilized sensor. It almost seems like Canon isn't really trying with this one because they could have easily made it so much better. It appears to just be Canon's introduction into the higher-end mirrorless market, making it sort of a vessel for the new lens mount. So, should you buy one? Well, probably not. If you're looking for a new camera at around $2,000, you'll find something better. I also opted for the Sony a7 III. However, if you menu shoot stills, already own Canon glass, or just value simplicity over anything else, go for it. Unless you're shooting a lot of wildlife or action. Seriously, don't get it for that. And don't get it for vlogging either. If it were a few $100 cheaper, I definitely recommend it because it is a good camera, just not at this price point. After almost a year, the price has dropped a bit. You can get it for around $2,000 now, but I still don't think it's worth it. There is, however, a lot of potential for the next generation. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to smash the like button, comment, subscribe, all that. And I see you guys in the next one. Peace.